SummerSlam was this past weekend, and I called up Busted Open Radio on my drive home from SummerSlam and talked to Tommy Dreamer about this. And my thing I said, which was then followed up by many callers, and that is, if you never watched wrestling before, or even if you do and maybe you haven't watched it in a while, you can't tell me the difference between SummerSlam and WrestleMania. What about you, Brandon? Specifically this year, but even in general, like, did SummerSlam versus WrestleMania, like, tell me some differences that I should be able to pick out, because on the surface, they looked identical.
No, there isn't much to nitpick difference-wise. You get all the quality matches. You get the two nights, which is obviously a thing that WrestleManias have been like for a little while now. And then you get the celebrity involvement, or I should say multiple celebrities, because we had Cardi B there as well. And then obviously Jelly Roll was in a match, a tag match alongside Randy Orton versus Logan Paul and Drew McIntyre. So it checks the boxes. It was that big PLE old school pay-per-view feel. Yeah, there is no difference in my book. It's just different time of the year.
This year we got a bigger stage, which was symbolic of something you would get at WrestleMania. Listen, it wasn't the most unique looking stage in the world, but as we've seen with WrestleMania, you don't always get that. In fact, I think the presentation for this stage, as plain as it was, is probably still would rank higher than the WrestleMania 35 stage when WrestleMania was at MetLife, and they just had the big, what people call the Sony Bravia Tron, which was just a simple single thing. But to go with the big stage, you had some unique entrances. I mean, Naomi with her dad playing guitar coming out, right?
By the way, I don't want to cut you off real quick. Her dad shreds. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean, I had no idea that was her dad when they were coming out. But that's awesome right there. With that entrance, right? You had AJ Styles coming out with the lowrider, the Eddie Guerrero style of entrance, right? Everyone had pyro
and the tights.
Yes, and the tights and the shirt, right? Yep. Styles Heat, I think it said. So, I mean, you had the unique entrances. You had pyro for everybody. And that's saying something, because of the fact that we're in a day and age, right, where WWE, there's been many SummerSlams I've been to, even SummerSlam that was in Las Vegas coming out of COVID, right? When Brock did his thing, and we'll talk about Brock in a second, no pyro, right? When Brock came out and made his return at the end of that SummerSlam, pretty much the same as this year's SummerSlam, right? John Cena's a loser. He goes away. And John Cena comes out. The difference is Cody Rhodes was in this match. Roman Reigns was in that one as the champion leaving the night. But I mean, you had pyro for. I mean, we're talking pyro for people who don't even typically get it. Like Dominic Mysterio had flames and fire. Everybody got something, and we did get some new WrestleMania style entrances, in the sense of WrestleMania is always a time of year where people get new videos, new songs. Right? We got that with Becky Lynch. Right? We kind of got that with Naomi, right? And somewhat of a new entrance for her. We got that unique entrance for Cody Rhodes with the big Dusty Rhodes, beginning to his entrance. John Cena came back to his face entrance. So just a lot of, and again, the second night too, for those who don't know, the second night, the entire stadium was full versus the first night, which had the SummerSlam. We tarp off some of the stuff that's not on television. Night number 2 was we filled it up, and it wasn't 80,000. I get it. If it was WrestleMania, you could probably sneak a few more people in there, but look wise, it looked like WrestleMania. And if you remember WrestleMania this year, in Allegiant Stadium, because it's a little bit smaller, only drew, 60,000 a night? So the 60,000 for MetLife on night 2 was pretty much identical with what WrestleMania drew at Allegiant Stadium, with a more full stadium, if you will. So, yeah, I mean, it felt like WrestleMania. We'll talk a little bit about the new deal where WWE and Triple H are talking about we ain't seen nothing yet, right? And obviously he was saying night 1 versus night 2, we ain't seen nothing yet. But talking about SummerSlam itself and night 1 and night 2 ending in the ways that they end. And before, quickly, I just want to ask you, Brandon, because I didn't get an opportunity to do so. Night 1 of SummerSlam. Now we've had a few different night 1s of WWE shows. So pretty much all WrestleManias and night 1 of SummerSlam. Is there a night 1 of a pay-per-view or WWE show that has ended like better than night 1 of SummerSlam? Like, at any night 1 of WrestleMania has come to mind where you were done watching night 1 of WrestleMania and said, boy, how are they going to top that? Like they did with night 1 of SummerSlam.
Not anything that comes to mind, because the way night 1 ended at SummerSlam this year, it to me, it felt like a night 2 finale. Like, it was just, It was the whole pomp and circumstance was phenomenal. And to be honest, I know obviously Cody Rhodes and John Cena was the marquee match of the weekend, but I still have to give it to night one for being the better show, in my opinion. I thought night one was better. Night two was still good. Don't get me wrong. Night two was still very good, but I enjoyed night one, that much better because night one was it was phenomenal from start to finish. I really enjoyed it. What about you?
Well, I mean, I think, they were both very good nights. They both had a lot going. I might give the slight edge to night two. I really loved that TLC match. They pulled out all the stops. They did everything they could in the TLC match. We saw some unique things. I always ask this every time you see a ladder match in general. What could you possibly still do that you haven't already done? They found a way to do something, right? The Ciampa thing where he kind of did like he ducked away of the spear. So we saw that, right? So he, kind of pulled himself up on the belts and missed the spear that was coming his way off the ladder, and a few other, different things that we may have never seen too much.
A lot of table spots. A lot of table spots.
A lot of table spots. Slim Jim got their money's worth with their table sponsorship in this match, but I would say I was a little surprised we had so many championship retentions. Specifically, probably Tiffany Stratton in 7.5 minutes beats Jade Cargill clean. I didn't see that coming. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I was shocked. I was very shocked by that. It tells me all I need to know about Tiffany Stratton. Obviously they haven't put the belt on Jade Cargill yet. I don't think that means she's not going to get it sooner rather than later. I do think she's going to end up being a champion at some point soon. I just think WWE probably felt, no, we want to keep it on Tiffany for a little bit longer. That kind of tells me that Jade's not 100% there yet as to what they're looking for as the next champion. So I do think she's going to be in the title picture, but I think it's more they got to work on a few things because there's a few spots in there that Jade wasn't bad. I don't want to say she was bad, but you could tell she's still learning. Like I would say honestly, it's weird to say this because of all her time in WWE and obviously AEW. There's some aspects of her game that are still pretty green. And I think WWE has taken the cautious approach and they don't want to put the belt on her just yet. So I think Tiffany Stratton was obviously was the safer bet because they already know what they have in her. So, I was very surprised by that, but, having a few days to digest it, it tells me that they feel Tiffany is the stronger champion at this point and that Jade needs a little bit more seasoning. And then eventually Jade's going to get the title.
What do you think, though? Does this take a little momentum off of Jade now that, because she's not getting the treatment like in AEW, she was getting the Goldberg treatment. She's not getting that here. She was originally.
She's not. She's not getting the treatment. And actually, nothing against Goldberg, but I think Jade Cargill's already doing more in the ring than what Goldberg did in his entire career. Because you know what? You want to talk about the 5 moves of doom with John Cena. Goldberg, what did he have? 3 moves, like a clothesline, a spear, and a jackhammer. Like that was maybe throw some punches in there, I guess. But Jade Cargill, I think she's close. From what WWE standards are, I don't think this is I think this is just a kind of I would say maybe a minor bump in the road, maybe a little pothole. But I do think Jade. I'd be shocked if Jade was not the champion by the time 2025 ends.
Yeah, it was a shock, but we did have 2 main events that did great. But talking about title changes that were in the main events, Charlotte and Alexa were the only non-main event that had a title change and them becoming the new women's tag team champions. Did you see that coming? Because I think we also predicted the Judgment Day were to retain in that one.
Yeah, I was surprised by that. Honestly, I felt like this was just like a temporary partnership, just to honestly kind of fill a spot for the SummerSlam card to get some marquee names on there as well. And I honestly thought they were going to put over Roxy Roxy and Raquel. Like I just thought that's where they were going to go with that. But and honestly, I don't know if you caught the promo on Raw this past week. I'm actually buying into this Alexa Bliss, Charlotte Flair tag team. I really like it right now. obviously we know where this is going to go at some point. They're going to, something's going to happen. There's going to be a rift. And if I had to predict it now, and obviously I don't see it happening anytime soon, I would predict, because everyone's going to think Charlotte's going to turn on Alexa. I think at some point Alexa's going to turn on Charlotte, and then we're going to get a feud out of those two once this tag team dissolves, which I hope doesn't happen too quickly, because the in-ring work obviously is good. The microphone, the promos have been good. The promo was good this past week, especially. I like the backstage work. Like, I really like what they're doing, and it makes the women's tag team division that much better. So I came into SummerSlam thinking, nah, this would be a temporary thing. But I came out of it like, all right, the tag team division is gotten even better with these two championship, singles championship competitors and future Hall of Famers as your tag team champions. I think it's cool.
Now, was there anything, I mean, other than somewhat in the main events having the idea of people who could be making returns, but let's say when they made their returns, for example, like which part of the match they made their returns, is there anything about SummerSlam night 1 or night 2 that went down exactly as you thought it would?
I mean, I had a feeling that, like, Roman Reigns and Jey Uso were going to win. Like, I kind of had a feeling with that one. That was kind of an obvious one. You saw on Twitter X, a little bit of back and forth with our former co-host Paul Boy Green Asden Jr.
Now, we knew about what you're going to say about the Seth Rollins thing. Now, I guess my thing is did you think that they would, because this is where I talk about, obviously all the other matches other than Roman Reigns, I mean, I think I predicted everyone wrong, right? They literally went all the opposite directions that I thought they would. But with Seth Rollins, if you were to say, does he come out or does he not come out? I would have thought 100% it was either during the match or not at all. So the fact that he came out after CM Punk was already the world heavyweight champion was a surprise to me, because I did not predict that element. When CM Punk won the belt, I thought, okay, he's not coming out. That's the end of this.
Yeah, I'll give you that as well, because I did feel like Seth coming into it. I felt like this was all they were just working it. You know what I mean? Like, I thought they were just working this entire thing over with the injury angle. Mm-hmm. And I just had a feeling that Seth was going to be involved at SummerSlam in some way, shape, or form. I guess there's two little aspects that I would say I got wrong, which was, if you go back on the pod last week, I felt like Seth would cost CM Punk the title.
Yeah, I didn't think he would allow him to actually be now a former champion, if you will.
Yes.
And he said you'd never hold the belt as long as I'm here. And that's not technically true, because he did actually get to hold the belt.
Yes. No, that's exactly. That's why I was thrown off by that part of it. And then the other part was, I felt like, I didn't see CM Punk winning clean. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't see that. You know what I mean? I felt like if there was any inkling, I felt like there might have been maybe something happens where CM Punk wins in a way that maybe wasn't necessarily clean. That's kind of what I was thinking. The whole thing was, from start to finish, that whole match and then the cash in, I thought it was executed pretty well. I laid it out on social media, kind of where I nitpick a little bit, because I did like what happened. I thought it was good. I thought that was cool. I thought what they did was cool, but the execution was a little awkward for me personally. It's like, okay, he comes out, he stands on stage, and then he takes all his medical devices off and then goes to the ring. I felt like it would have been better executed in that scenario, where he comes out and he comes out in a golf cart, like Paul Heyman's driving the golf cart for him or something. And he gets on, he gets in the ring, and maybe he's turning a new leaf. Well, you never know. Mm-hmm. He comes in, and then CM Punk lets his guard down, and next thing you know, he cashes in. He hits him with the the his equipment, his medical devices. Like I know he had the brace and everything. Maybe hits him with that, stomps, gets the ref, cashes in, wins the belt. That was my only little difference of what I would have preferred. But overall, I like what they did, WWE. I would have to give them credit for that.
So we have a new world heavyweight champion in Seth Rollins. We got a new WWE champion. Cody Rhodes is back on top of the mountain, beating John Cena in a very good match, which saw the return of Brock Lesnar at the end of the match. But the match overall, John Cena, Cody Rhodes, do you think that's one of John Cena's best matches of all time?
It definitely is in the last probably 10 years, easily. Yeah, I guess if I had to really think about it, pretty quick, I would say it's one of his better matches. Yeah, I would say probably of all time. It was a classic match, like John Cena style, where it was you're not going to get this Bret Hart like technical, aspect of it, but for what it was really good, and it really was John Cena's not only best match of this new run that he's had right now, but probably in 10 years. If I had to say at least a decade.
I mean, I think he put on a really good match at SummerSlam 2021 when he took on Roman Reigns. That was back when Roman Reigns had held the belt for exactly 1 year because he won it, I think, right after SummerSlam.
Was it better? Was it better than this?
I don't think it was better than this. I just remember John Cena, though, really had a lot of moments where we thought he was going to end the then 1 year reign, or just shy of 1 year reign, of Roman Reigns at SummerSlam 2021. Because Roman Reigns at that time had held the belt for a year. We were surprised he held it as long as he had. We didn't know we were in for like a 4 year run. But we at the time thought, okay, John Cena, he could definitely, stake claim to becoming 17-time champion in Las Vegas at Allegiant Stadium, which he didn't get to do that night. Brock Lesnar then came out after that match was then over, but he put on a really good match, really made it so that he pushed Roman Reigns to the limit on that night. And I think this match also really good, better than the WrestleMania of this year's match for sure. I thought this match was great. I loved a lot of the different spots they did, specifically, obviously taking like the ring ropes off. I kind of saw the, not exactly right away, but they let down the trap door, which Cody Rhodes comes out of earlier in the middle of the match, which John Cena and Cody Rhodes ended up using in the segment where he had Cody Rhodes over his shoulder, FU style.
By the way, stage. Great visual doing, like he comes up from the underneath where Cody comes out, and he comes out with this look on his face, and he's got Cody over his shoulder. Like if you go back and watch that on on Peacock or Netflix, it's a cool visual. Kudos to the WWE production team. Well done on that. That was cool.
Yeah, I mean overall, I think SummerSlam was great. Being an outdoor stadium in a summer night, which is great because again, like Philadelphia, which had WrestleMania a couple years ago in a similar setup, but the idea there is that it's kind of chilly outside, so you don't get that summer atmosphere, if you will. It's winterish during the daytimes. It's acceptable, but it's not shorts in summer. Like I was at the beach earlier in the day before SummerSlam night number 2. You're not really going to get that during WrestleMania time. And Las Vegas obviously doesn't have a beach. I got a lot of pools, no beach around there, but I just liked everything about this. And one thing that was crazy about this, we can kind of how this blends into the ESPN thing. We'll talk about that a little bit, but I don't know if you caught this, but I did a sped up video. I've never seen anything like this before in my life. This was a first. I would say I haven't even seen 1/20th of this. But you talk about business and you talk about the popularity of the product. After I went to the WWE store, after I waited in an incredibly long line to get in the store, I walked the line and recorded myself and recorded the line as I was walking it. The line from the start of the store to the back of the store. Now, might I add that the start of the store is a zigzag, meaning that it's a lot of people in a small space. So it's like 4 lines, if you will, because you go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, like a zigzag pattern, around the turnstiles. So the start of the line is like that. So you can take a picture of the whole line in one picture with that. But then after the zigzag, they then had the line go throughout the America Dream Mall. It took me just under 7 minutes to walk the entire length of the line to get into. This is not a line to meet Dominic Mysterio. This is not a line to meet a wrestler. This is not a line to get some sort of autographed merchandise that they've got limited supply of. This is just a line to go in the store to buy a t-shirt, a hat, a keychain, a magnet, water koozie, whatever. And I don't know if you can really comprehend. That's a long time to walk from the start of a line all the way to the end of a line, right? 7 minutes. Like 7 minutes. I've never, to be honest with you, I don't think I've actually waited 7 minutes in line to get into a store. Like with the line itself. Like in LA, I went right when the store opened, so the line was a little long because it was like the day the store opened, and I went right away. It was maybe like 10 minutes ish to wait to get into the store, but 7 minutes to walk the line. No lie, it was a quarter mile long, maybe a half a mile long. I mean, with like 7 minutes to walk it, like walking at a brisk pace, recording the line, it took me just under 7 minutes to walk.
Here's my takeaway from that. Why don't they have a better logistics to get these people in and out quicker to make more money quicker? Like to me, it seems like they didn't have this planned out well enough where it wasn't streamlined. Like if you see a line that long, I know people are going to wait. Don't get me wrong. I get that. You're going to wait.
I waited for about 2 hours to get in, and the line was longer after I left.
And that's wild to me. Like just to go in to maybe buy a t-shirt. Like it's like, to me, that's crazy. Like WWE needs to figure that out logistically. Like, because here's the thing. Here's my takeaway from that. Like you brag about all the money that you're making. And obviously we're going to talk about the money stuff in just a little bit here. You can't tell me you can't pay some more people to open up the floodgates a little bit more so we can get people in and out quicker. Like,
well, no, I think the store was just full. I mean, when I went in the store, there wasn't like tons of room to move around. But yeah, and they had as many cash registers open as they physically had. Like, I think the problem with this was versus like maybe like a WrestleMania Superstore is it was a smaller store. The space they had in the mall was a smaller space. The space was full. I will actually say it was not one of the better stores. That is also the negative here, right? The longest line I ever waited for a store that wasn't one of the better stores. In fact, and this is what I'll actually say. So WWE, whenever they're in a stadium or an arena or wherever they are normally for these bigger shows, have these standalone stores at the convention centers and a mall and a public location, what have you. But then they also take over the store within the stadium. For example, in Allegiant Stadium, it's like the Allegiant Stadium, the Raiders store, right? They completely took over that store, and it was a WWE store. Here, they did the same at MetLife Stadium. The big MetLife Stadium store that would sell Giants, Jets, whoever plays at MetLife Stadium was all WWE. And I'll be honest with you, those are better stores overall. So the WWE store at MetLife Stadium was better than the store they had in the mall because it looked like a store. This one looks like just merchandise in an empty space, right? Because it's not set up to be, it's not a store, right? It's an empty store, an empty storefront that they put in stuff last minute. Or at the convention centers, they put in a store last minute. They do the best they can, but it doesn't feel like you're in a traditional store with racks and changing rooms and those kind of things. So when they were in the MetLife Stadium store and had it full, it had all the merchandise this store had. It was actually bigger, I believe. And I think the Allegiant Stadium store was almost just as big, if not as big, as the store at the convention center for WrestleMania, because again, these are in football stadiums. So their team stores are pretty big because they're open year round. These aren't like small little team stores kind of thing for like a WNBA team, right? It's a
professional football team store.
Yeah. So it's not a department store, but it's pretty close to like a small department store size. So like just that alone, I think is actually just a better idea. I mean, I don't think that would create a less line, but I'm just saying, like, I went to the MetLife Stadium store one of the days after the show got out. There was less of a line because, you know what I mean? People were kind of coming and going throughout the show. And also it was a better store. So, I think in this sense, the store itself, not really worth the wait in that regard, but it's just crazy to me that the wait was that long to go into this store and see what they had to, everybody was leaving with something. You didn't wait 2 hours in line to buy nothing.
Yeah. If you're waiting for 2 hours and not getting something, there's a problem. Like you got to buy at least a t-shirt or something. Like it makes no sense. And actually, speaking of t-shirts and sales and all that stuff, there's something I got to bring up that's tied into SummerSlam, dollars and cents, merch. And heck, it even ties into Paul Heyman and Stone Cold Steve Austin. So where I'm getting at is Karrion Kross. That was one of the biggest surprises of the weekend. Even on for me personally as a fan, that was as big of a surprise as Brock Lesnar because I didn't expect it, but I was texting you and I was like, okay, Brock or Rock, it's going to be one of the two. That's what I was kind of thinking. But Karrion Kross not going over on Sami Zayn to me is absolutely ridiculous. Like I just to me, I'm boggled. But then I see Ariel Helwani, big wrestling fan. He's an MMA guy. Like he's very popular. One of the better ones in the space. Like he's really good. He does an interview with Paul Heyman. Just in the recent days, and essentially Paul Heyman made a point that maybe now I'm not as upset because he's saying, why don't we drag this on a little bit more? Let's build up Karrion Kross even more, get the demand up even more. Once I heard Paul Heyman say that, I'm like, it makes sense. And then he compared it to back in the day. And I remember it. I don't know if you remember it. I was a fan back in those days where there was a demand for Stone Cold Steve Austin. And like it took WWF at the time a long time to do it, but it ended up working out very well. And Paul Heyman says Karrion Kross is a main event player in his eyes if they give him the chance. I buy it. I'm impatient with it. I think they've done it long enough. What do you think about it?
The difference with Stone Cold Steve Austin, right, is he's kind of newer to the company, right? He comes in 96-ish, right? He does the big promo at the end of 96, not end of 96, King of the Ring 96, right? Yeah. And then in 97, he starts to catch heat. 98 to put the belt on him. Karrion Kross, I feel like people are behind him, not because he's the new flavor of the week, but because he's been pushed down for so long and they treated him bad for so long. This would be like Stone Cold in 2001, like having been released and brought back and released and brought back, but still no title on him. You know what I mean? And still the fans wanting him to get pushed, but them still being like, nah. And then they bring him back and they're like, yeah, we're going to push him. Nah, instead we're going to release him. And that's the difference here. Karrion Kross isn't just like LA. And I would say the same, right? This is more or less all similar, but not so much. I maybe even Karrion Kross should get pushed even more. But LA Knight, I mean, the fact that we're waiting on the push for him, right? 2023. I was in England, Money in the Bank. I thought he had it in the bag, right? 2023, he's going to win Money in the Bank. By WrestleMania 40, he's going to be in that main event picture. Here he is, WrestleMania 40. Not in that main event picture. Here he is at WrestleMania 41. Not in that main event picture.
But he did have a championship match this week as we're recording. I'm just saying he did have a title match with Seth Rollins. So I guess to that point, where's it going to go with Karrion Kross? Because to me, part of me, because everything can be a work in WWE. I think we all understand that. Like, I don't know if you caught the clip. I'm sure you did. It's been trending all over social media where the fans are saying, we want Kross at the at the post show.
And Triple H says, you got Brock.
You got Brock. To me, I feel like there's some sort of work going on there because then there's been also various reports from different outlets and different quote unquote journalists that he's already, his contract's up and they didn't offer him. And now they're saying there is a contract on the table. For Karrion Kross and Scarlett, obviously they're a package deal. I mean, what do you make of this? Do you think he's going to get a push at some point, or do you think he's going to be out the door working somewhere else soon?
I mean, I really don't know because I really feel like this is you had your chance, you had your opportunity to do it, and they didn't do it. And that I feel like I'm leaning more towards going out the door. I don't know if this is going to turn into an R-Truth situation. But even with R-Truth coming back, they brought him back, but they've been really slow with him when it comes to bringing him back in that way.
It kind of cooled off, by the way. That R-Truth thing cooled off pretty quick.
Yeah, exactly. And so I would lean more towards the negative on Karrion Kross. I don't feel like WWE. I know they like to play this whole the Rocks were steps ahead of you nonsense. I don't always believe that, and I don't necessarily believe that with this because SummerSlam, he's on the PLE. He's here because we pushed him to be here. Finally, he's deserving to have been on the PLEs a long time ago, and then you don't have him go over. Like I don't know.
I'll be the optimist because we've obviously we saw with the whole Seth Rollins injury angle, they're doing some creative ways to work the audience and to also put somebody over. And and with everything going on with Karrion Kross on social media, he I don't know if you saw, there's an interview he did recently. I forget the outlet. I wish I could give him credit for it, but he was on a podcast recently, and essentially it was him talking about the book, but also there's interest in making a potential movie out of his life. Like there's so much going on with Karrion Kross that to me, I feel like WWE would be stupid if they didn't capitalize on that, because he's got so much momentum, not only in the business, but he's doing other things outside of the business. I feel like WWE would be smart, and I feel like they will be smart, and they're going to cash in and work him up the food chain sooner rather than later. That's kind of where I'm thinking.
With SummerSlam in the books, one thing that was really strange to me, and I mentioned it to you, right? So the first night they attract about 53,000 people. I'm sitting, pretty center with the ring, 50-yard line, if you will, at a football stadium. The entire opposite side of the stadium, not the lower level. The lower level is full, and even like the 200 level, but the entire upper deck from end zone to end zone, completely tarped off, right? We've seen that before with SummerSlams before. At the one in Nashville, I think the entire, not just the upper deck, all the entire from top to bottom, from end zone to end zone was tarped off at SummerSlam 2022 in Nashville. Last year in Cleveland, they did a little bit better, but still, like the idea was where the camera faces, that's where we want to make sure it's full. On night number 2, they opened up that entire side, not just the section. They did section by section, but it ended up opening up the entire side. And that was really strange to me because I ended up buying my ticket the day of a SummerSlam night number 2 and sat on that side. And it is so strange to me to be sitting in a section of seats. Like there's 1,000 seats in these sections, right? Because they're huge. They're football stadium sections. And from end zone to end zone. So to the section to the right of me, section to the left of me, the next one over on that side, the next one over on the other side, were all people who bought their tickets within 24 hours because those seats were just put on sale the week, like Saturday, probably Saturday afternoon. And then section by section started opening up until the show started. So literally everyone who was sitting in my section all around me had purchased their ticket literally within the last 24 hours or less, which I thought was crazy because I've never been to anything like that before where I'm completely just surrounded by people. And I'm looking, and it's weird because the concession stands beside me were all full and the bathrooms were full and there was a little merchandise stand as well. And I'm sitting here thinking the night before this was all closed off. Security had this all closed off. There's little, caution tape, like can't come back here because we're not staffing places we're not selling seats for. So to think that this is like a full area with open concessions and open souvenir stores and all these people just created within 24 hours. So the additional 7,000 people they talked about that were there for night 2 were all created within 24 hours. And I think that's pretty wild to me. I've never seen anything like that. One other takeaway I will say, I went to the GCW show on Friday night in place of going to SmackDown. And yes, it does hurt me a little bit that I did not go to the SmackDown, which I have to say, better than the go home SmackDown that I went to for WrestleMania because it had the very infamous John Cena turning face all of a sudden. It really opened up things for the weekend, which was like, you had to kind of know about SmackDown. It wasn't one of those like, we already know about it, we don't even have to know. Like, you had to know about SmackDown going into SummerSlam because that was a big story. But I went to GCW, the first one I ever went to in the state of New Jersey, and I will say you need to put it on your bucket list. I always try to go to GCW before big WWE shows when they're in town, wherever, whether it was Indianapolis or whether it's Detroit or Cleveland or any of these places. But in New Jersey, I can tell you that where their home is and where essentially it seems like they just it's insane. It was just the most insane wrestling show I've ever been to. I will say there was non-death matches for those who like non-death matches, so you don't get too burnt out from one thing. Shotzi was involved. The Hardys made an appearance at it. Really cool overall. But just like, I've never been really in person for like a death match. I've seen some crazy things before. I've seen some glass being broken before and things like that. But I've never been to a wrestling show where there's no guardrails, there's no seats. It's as close as you want to get. and the wrestlers treat it the outside of the ring just like like there's guardrails. Like they'll just want to do a flip onto a guy outside the ring, sure. Like you'll just have to get out of the way, and not like get out of the way like we could prepare like everyone we're making room. Just like we'll do a flip over the top rope onto a wrestler outside, and oh, by the way, as I'm in the air, that's your cue to kind of like duck and cover. So crazy, got shot with glass in my face. I've never actually physically been scared to be hurt at a wrestling show before, like I was at that. It was like a roller coaster, like an adrenaline rush, because you're over here normally just a spectator for this stuff, and here you are as they're breaking glass and it's shooting into the crowd, and from my understanding, it's a show after the one that we had free that they let people stay for, which was Juggalo Championship Wrestling. So if you went to this, they let you stay for the second. Someone got lit on fire in that show. So just crazy. GCW, they're always up in the bar. Got to check them out. And it's the best part about it is it's such a way to see the entire wheel that is pro wrestling. In the world we live at now, right, where WWE has the Unreal show, this is a great way to see both sides of the coin, because you're over here watching the Unreal and it's kind of ruining the magic of pro wrestling. But I imagine if I showed somebody Unreal, or let's just say they've only seen WWE, and brought them to this, like somebody who's a skeptic, somebody who I brought to just because I said, hey, you're coming with me, and they're not a wrestling fan, they would have left the GCW show, but like, whoa, 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 whoa. I don't understand. How are they doing that? How was that fake? And you'd have to tell them some of that stuff necessarily wasn't fake. I mean, blood's blood, glass is glass, right? And you could pick the glass right up the floor to show it, so it's not like a David Copperfield illusion. And they would have left there with like a lot of like, whoa, I'm confused. I thought this was all fake and scripted, and no one gets hurt, and it's all like silly, and chair shots, don't really hurt them as bad, and things like that. So if you want to take someone who's a skeptic of wrestling and think, wrestling, like, it's phony, take them to this, and I promise you, they're going to sit there and be telling their friends at work, no, listen, I know you think it's stupid and fake and dumb, but like, hear me out. I saw something that I cannot, like, that was unexplainable in that sense, and whether you like it or not, like, you would have, I don't know if appreciation for it, because it's a weird world when people are, like, covered in blood like that, but just a thought of like, wait a minute, maybe this isn't actually as fake as I thought it would be. SummerSlam weekend though, overall, like the weather was perfect. It was summer. Like I said, WrestleMania S pay-per-view. In fact, when it comes to comparing it to this year's WrestleMania, much better show, much better set design, not set design. WrestleMania had a sweet set, but just much better pyro, things going on, just overall vibe of the show, just felt bigger, felt great. And it was awesome. SummerSlam in the books, gets me excited for obviously what's going forward. And I will say in a final take, the Raw after SummerSlam felt like the Raw after WrestleMania, because you had to tune in. You had to tune in. You had to see what's going to happen. It's from the New York City area, so it's from the same place where the show just was. You had to tune in. You had to watch it. You had to see what's going on. So WrestleMania, we always talked about there potentially being two WrestleManias if Saudi ever wanted one. They'd have one in the States and one in Saudi. But we had another WrestleMania this year. It's called SummerSlam.